Hello, everyone. This is SabrinaJean. I hope you're all doing well. I would love to share some information with you. I want to share some insights and realizations that just over the last 24 hours have come into my awareness. And these realizations are linking our physical, mental, emotional health and well being to, well, honestly, I've tracked it back to the beginning of this current solar cycle, which they call Solar Cycle 25, which supposedly began in December of 2019. Now, I find this very interesting because when I saw this date, we all know what began in December of 2019. Although COVID didn't really become a huge thing until 2020, but there are some indicators that reveal or they hint to the fact that the virus and the infections began in December of 2019, and it took a few months for that to take off. And I know you were all there too, so we don't really need to revisit that story, do we? But I find it really interesting that this solar cycle 25, around that time, and look at everything that has changed since that time. Meaning, look at everything that's changed in the world since then. And so last night, as soon as I realized that this solar cycle 25 and the dates, because I personally have begun to have more seriously related health issues since then. It didn't really begin for me until about maybe the end of 2021 or 2022. But when I did my research on the solar cycle, it did say that the solar cycle and the flares in the sun's activity did begin to pick up and peak around 2023, or starting at 2023, continued through 2024 and 2025. And honestly, I've just been able to connect the dots because I've been having situations that, well, are causing me to stop and think and, well, sometimes scratch my head wondering, what just happened? Why am I feeling these things? And I try to talk about this on YouTube in readings, but maybe not everybody needs to hear this in their pick a card reading. So that's why I'm sharing this here in a recorded audio video for any of you who've been experiencing greater health issues, whether they're physical, mental, emotional, or otherwise, since 2019. So here's the kicker. Here's what's really interesting in my situation, and I'm just sharing my personal story in hopes that it may help you to understand yours. But even more recently, 10 days before Christmas, so yeah, in December of last year, I woke up one morning suddenly experiencing vertigo. I've never had vertigo before. My head was extremely heavy. I couldn't keep it upright, and whenever I tried to relax, it felt like there was this weight, this spiral pulling my head down into a particular direction, which caused me to become nauseous. I couldn't stand up straight without feeling dizzy. This is what vertigo causes. And I ended up having to call an ambulance to take me to emergency because I seriously thought there was something wrong inside my head. Now, I also used to be a licensed massage therapist for about 6 years in the past. So I kept thinking about my proprioceptors. My proprioceptors, which we all have, allows us to sense where we are in space with our eyes closed. And I felt like my proprioceptor was off or disconnected, which is why I couldn't seem to find any kind of equilibrium. Technically, I was being thrown off balance for some reason. Now, this goes deeper, so listen in. Oh, and by the way, after the CAT scans and the blood tests and all of that stuff, doctor comes in and is like, well, we can't see anything wrong with you. And naturally, I said, of course, of course. So this is just another spiritual symptom, right? Now, I don't know if the doctor believed in spiritual symptom, but he gave me his professional advice as to what he thought was causing the vertigo, and of course gave me a prescription, etc., etc., etc. Now, I prefer holistic healing to anything else. But first I needed to heal myself. I needed to try and find a balance again. And recently I was thinking, because it's been about a month now since I had that episode, and I've been thinking, you know what, for at least a year now, even my own tarot card pulls for myself, my spirit guides keep sending me twos or messages that are asking me to find a balance or keep a balance or to balance something. And naturally, especially if you're pulling a tarot card and it's got the number 2, it could mean 1,000 different things. Balance as a single word is also really, it's not giving us all the information that we need. And I kept saying balance, and I really had no idea what my spirit guides were trying to say to me. So it's like, okay, balance, maybe find a happy balance in my life or something. I didn't really go any deeper than that. But here's where the solar cycle has proven to me that I'm not going crazy. I'm not dying. And there have been many times over the last few years where I wondered where I was dying physically. There were times where I asked God just to let me die because there were things I was experiencing that I really was not comfortable with, and I just didn't want to play that game anymore. But now I'm connecting it all with the solar cycle and the sun. And so really quickly, I want to take you back into past, because not only the solar flares and the solar activity since 2019 and the recent years, my health symptoms that I've been experiencing are also related to my personal astrological transits, meaning based on my birth data and specific events and transits to other planets and cycles based on my natal astrology and transitional astrology, of course. I have begun to recognize that there are certain events that happen that trigger physical pain or symptoms or other things. And this is only something that I started tracking because, well, literally, I didn't start learning more. I didn't buy astrology software to learn and practice on my own until 2018. However, when I started having little accidents, and I'm one of those people, I want to know the truth. What's going on? Why did this happen? And so, and this all plays into the same message about balance. It was about 2024. So the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024, I had 2 incidents. I had walked to the store. I was walking home. I tripped. There were cracks in the sidewalk. The first time I tripped and I fell, I landed on my right shoulder. Now, this isn't the first time I've ever tripped and fallen in my life. When I was little, I crashed my bike and landed on my face. When I was a little bit older, I would crash on my roller skates and hit the back of my head. So it's interesting. I tend to have injuries in my head physically. And I'm wondering if that has to do with the fact that I was born with Saturn in Aries. Now, Saturn rules the bones and structure, and among other things, but it also rules the teeth And there was something else that I just had that I forgot. Well, the head, the skull, the bones, and so does Aries. Aries rules the head, and Aries is very fiery, spontaneous, quick acting. And so maybe I have certain tendencies that I was born with, and I'm usually participating in some sort of physical exercise when I have an accident and land on my face. Or in this case, more recently, I landed on my right arm. And this was at the end of 2023. And then a month later, I tripped again in a different spot and I fell and landed on my left side. So it's almost as if when I tripped and I landed on my right shoulder, fortunately, I didn't have to go to the doctor, but yeah, it hurt. But it was almost as if something was telling me to stop, like stop, slow down. And then the next month, I tripped and I fell, landed on my left shoulder. Listen, relax, tune in. So it's almost as if I don't know what causes us to have accidents like this, or I should just be speaking for myself. But at the time where I was tripping and falling, I was experiencing a lot of discomfort. I had temporarily moved. I wasn't comfortable in the area I was living or the situation or the people in that community. And I really just wanted to get out of that area. So is it possible that maybe I was walking to the post office and I wanted to get back home quickly because, of strange and unusual people in the area, but I wasn't paying attention, so I tripped and I fell? It's very possible. So maybe back in the beginning of 2023, even, symptoms that I was experiencing because I started having interesting, I don't even know how to describe it, changes in my gums and my teeth. And that began in 2022. And what else was happening astrologically for me in 2022? Well, I began a Pluto transit through my 12th house, which has been very interesting. Saturn had previously started transiting my 12th house. And when Saturn transits the 12th house, it's like 2.5 years of self-analyzation, self-undoing, recognize your shadow self or how you're sabotaging yourself. And so this really dates back to 2021 for me. But what's interesting in 2020, I noticed we had a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, and this is something that everybody experienced. And so huge change, expansion, but endings and beginnings all in 2020, with the whole COVID thing. So there are mysterious reasons why greater events happen, not only globally, but individually too. And some of these things can cause us to have accidents, and even our bodies are probably trying to tell us something that we need to know. And so for those of you who are following your own personal transits, I just want to share with you a little bit more information. When I tend to have more accidents when Mars is transiting my first, second, third houses. I do tend to move home when Mars is transiting the 4th house or the 6th house. There's a combination of Sun, Venus, and Mars, but also in connection to the 2nd house, the 4th house, and the 6th house. So if any of you are looking to move, then you might want to check your astrological transits to try and gain a sense of timing for your own self. But if you're hot-headed, or if you act before you think, or if you have extra excitable, fiery energy within you, like Aries energy, you might be accident prone. So just something for you to consider, something for you to think about. And maybe my spirit guides, which technically are my astrology transits or the sun, or maybe even something bigger that I may not ever fully understand, have all been trying to help me to find a balance. Maybe it's been trying to tell me to balance my thoughts, my actions, my intentions, and my emotions. Well, it's taken 5 years, I think, for me to figure this out. And, even last year was really interesting. Last year, it was a one personal year for me, but I was still having to let go of things. So there were still universal energies that I had to wait for them to dissipate. And so this year, 2026, I've definitely been feeling much more free. And what's funny is that this year, for me, is a 2 personal year. So it's about finding balance, tuning into intuition, listening, trusting more intuitively. So it's almost as if this time around, I'm very well aware of how I might have a physical accident. I'm definitely keeping a close eye on Mars. And Saturn is transiting my first house again, along with Neptune. In fact, I'm thinking that the eclipse in February is going to be very impactful, at least in my chart. And I'm not sure if it's going to happen in my 12th house, the spiritual house, or in my first house. Oh, and I didn't even mention the fact that, so I was born rising sign Aquarius, and Aquarius and Uranus. So Uranus right now is squaring my rising sign personally. And so it's affecting my shoulders, right? I tripped and I fell on my arms. It affects the central nervous system. Uranus does. And I've been experiencing issues with my upper shoulders, my neck. Even recently, I've been having headaches, and I don't usually have headaches. So this could be a combination of planets and the sun, the solar cycles, that sort of thing. But at least this time and moving forward, I'm completely aware of what causes me to experience things, and even inflammation. Viruses and infections usually begin during too much fire energy. And very soon the whole planet is going to be moving into many fire signs. So I also want to just get your attention to pay attention to make sure that you're taking care of your own health and well-being, because if you're prone to infections or viruses or inflammation, doesn't matter what part of your body, then it might be more likely to happen or physically affect you when all of these planets suddenly go into Aries very soon. So I'm just sharing here. I hope you found this information helpful. I do wish you all well. I wish everyone the best of happiness and prosperity and peace, not only peace of mind, but peace within your emotions and a peaceful physical body as well. Until my next video, stay healthy. Bye for now.